Imagine an island so dazzling that even the gods paused to admire it. Its towers gleamed like polished crystal, its streets hummed with the rhythm of knowledge, and its people walked with the confidence of those who believed they had mastered the secrets of the universe. This was Atlantis, or at least the Atlantis that has haunted human imagination for thousands of years. The story begins with Plato, the philosopher who gave us the first written account of Atlantis. He described it as a mighty island beyond the Pillars of Hercules, larger than Libya and Asia combined, a place where kings ruled with wisdom and armies marched with pride. Atlantis was said to be a paradise of advanced knowledge, a civilization so sophisticated that it seemed more dream than reality. And yet, Plato's tale ended not with triumph, but with tragedy. Atlantis, corrupted by arrogance, sank beneath the waves in a single day and night of misfortune. From that moment, Atlantis became the ultimate mystery. Was it real, or was it simply a metaphor for human hubris? Was it a memory of a lost civilization, or a bedtime story told by philosophers to remind us that even the greatest empires can fall? The mystery of Atlantis is not just about whether it existed, it is about why the idea refuses to die. Every culture has its own version of a lost golden age. The Egyptians spoke of Zeptepi the first time, when gods walked among men. The Mesopotamians told of Dilmun, a paradise before the flood. The Hindus described ancient cycles of ages, each ending in destruction and rebirth. Atlantis fits neatly into this pattern, a reminder that humanity is always haunted by the idea that something greater once existed, and perhaps could exist again. The mystery deepens when Atlantis is connected to figures like Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom, and to places like the Hall of Records, the legendary vault said to contain the secrets of lost civilizations. Suddenly, Atlantis is not just a sunken island, but a thread woven into the fabric of human history, linking myths, temples, and forbidden knowledge across cultures. For centuries, scholars have argued endlessly about Atlantis, producing mountains of books, papers, and theories. Some say it was in the Mediterranean, others in the Caribbean, others under Antarctica. If Atlantis really did sink, it must be rolling its eyes at us from the ocean floor, wondering why we're still debating its postal address. Yet the mystery remains irresistible. Atlantis is more than a place. It is a symbol of human longing. It represents the dream of perfection, the fear of downfall, and the hope that somewhere, hidden beneath waves or sands, lies a record of who we once were. Whether real or myth, Atlantis continues to whisper to us, lulling us into the kind of story that makes the mind wander and the eyelids grow heavy. If you love mythology and history from all cultures and forbidden ancient stories, subscribe, because this channel reveals the secrets behind every myth. And let me know from where you're watching. Hopefully not from Atlantis itself, unless you've got internet down there. Atlantis has always hovered between imagination and history. It is the shimmering island that refuses to stay silent, the ghost of a civilization that may have existed, or may have been nothing more than a philosopher's clever metaphor. For over 2,000 years, the question has lingered: was Atlantis real, or was it simply a myth? Plato, the Greek philosopher, gave us the first written account. In his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, he described Atlantis as a mighty island empire beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. Atlantis was said to be larger than Libya and Asia combined, a place of fertile plains, gleaming temples, and kings who ruled with wisdom. Its people were advanced, their knowledge vast, their armies powerful. It was, in short, the perfect civilization. But perfection rarely lasts. According to Plato, arrogance crept in, greed took root, and the Atlanteans turned away from virtue. The gods, displeased, sent destruction. In a single day and night of misfortune, Atlantis sank beneath the waves. Now, here is where the debate begins. Was Plato recording history, passing down a memory of a real place? Or was he crafting an allegory, a cautionary tale meant to warn Athens about the dangers of pride and corruption? Scholars have argued endlessly. Some insist Atlantis was a real island, perhaps inspired by the eruption of Thera, the volcanic disaster that shattered the Minoan civilization around 1600 BCE. Others believe it was a distorted echo of even older floods, disasters remembered in oral traditions and shaped into story. Still others shrugged and say it was pure philosophy, a bedtime parable dressed up as geography. The beauty of Atlantis lies in this uncertainty. If it had been proven real, it would be a chapter in archaeology. If it had been proven false, it would be a footnote in philosophy. But because it remains unresolved, it has become a canvas for imagination. Explorers have placed Atlantis everywhere, in the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, Antarctica, even beneath the Sahara Desert. Each theory adds another layer of intrigue, another reason to keep the story alive. Humorously, Atlantis has become the world's longest-running game of hide-and-seek. Every time someone claims to have found it, the ocean seems to shrug and say, "Nice try." Yet the persistence of the search reveals something deeper. Humanity's longing for a lost golden age. Atlantis is not just about geography. It is about the dream that somewhere, sometime, humanity lived in harmony with wisdom and abundance. Atlantis was not remembered simply as a city of wealth and power. It was remembered as a civilization of astonishing knowledge. Plato's account hints at this, but later traditions expanded the idea until Atlantis became the ultimate symbol of lost wisdom. The Atlanteans were said to have mastered sciences that blended seamlessly with spirituality, creating a society where technology and philosophy were not separate but united. Legends describe their ability to harness natural forces in ways that seem almost magical. They were said to control energy through crystals, align their temples with the stars, and understand the rhythms of the earth itself. Their architecture was not just functional, but symbolic, designed to mirror cosmic patterns. The great concentric rings of their capital city reflected harmony between land, sea, and sky. To the Atlanteans, geometry was not decoration, it was a language of the universe. This advanced knowledge extended into medicine and consciousness. Some stories claim they could heal with sound and vibration, restoring balance to the body by tuning it like an instrument. Others suggest they explored the depths of the mind, unlocking abilities that modern science still struggles to explain. Whether these accounts are literal or metaphorical, they paint a picture of a people who believed wisdom was the highest form of power. Of course, skeptics point out that no evidence of such technology has ever been found. But the myth persists because it speaks to a universal longing, the idea that humanity once lived in harmony with knowledge, that we once understood truths now forgotten. Atlantis becomes a mirror of our own hopes and frustrations, a reminder that progress is not only about machines, but about meaning. In the end, the advanced knowledge of Atlantis may be less about what they built and more about what they represented: a civilization where wisdom was woven into daily life, where science and spirit were one, and where knowledge was not hoarded but celebrated. Atlantis, in legend, was not the only great civilization to vanish. Across the world, stories echo of mighty cultures that rose with brilliance and collapsed with sudden tragedy. The fall of Atlantis is the most famous, but it belongs to a wider pattern: the cycle of civilizations that reach dazzling heights only to crumble under the weight of their own ambition. Plato described Atlantis as corrupted by greed and arrogance. Its kings, once noble, turned toward conquest, and its people forgot the balance between wisdom and power. The gods, displeased, sent destruction, and in a single day and night the island sank beneath the waves. Whether literal or symbolic, the tale reflects a truth seen throughout history. Civilizations fall not only from external disasters, but from internal decay. Other cultures tell similar stories. The Minoans of Crete, advanced in trade and art, were devastated by the eruption of Thera. The Maya, masters of astronomy and architecture, faced droughts and political turmoil that fractured their cities. Even mighty Rome, with its legions and laws, eventually collapsed under corruption, invasion, and overreach. Each fall carries echoes of Atlantis, the reminder that greatness is fragile. The myth of Atlantis magnifies this lesson. It suggests that when knowledge is misused, when wisdom is replaced by arrogance, collapse is inevitable. The Atlanteans may have mastered energy, geometry, and medicine, but they could not master themselves. Their downfall became a warning carved into legend. No civilization, however advanced, is immune to the consequences of imbalance. And so the fall of Atlantis is more than a bedtime story. It is a mirror held up to humanity, reflecting the rise and fall of countless cultures. It whispers that progress without humility leads to ruin, and that the sands of time bury even the brightest empires. Atlantis may be myth, but its fall is a truth repeated across history, a truth that still lulls us into reflection as we drift toward sleep. When Atlantis fell, legend says not all of its people were lost to the sea. Survivors, carrying fragments of their wisdom, journeyed across the world to seed new civilizations. This idea that Atlantean refugees became the teachers of humanity is one of the most enduring threads in the myth. Some traditions claim that groups of survivors sailed east, reaching the fertile lands of Egypt. There, they shared knowledge of architecture, astronomy, and sacred geometry, laying the foundations for what would become one of history's greatest civilizations. Others suggest they traveled west, influencing cultures in the Americas, where echoes of Atlantean myths appear in stories of gods descending from the sea. The survivors were said to be guided by figures of immense wisdom, and none more famous than Thoth in Egyptian lore. Thoth is remembered as the god of writing, balance, and divine intelligence. Some storytellers imagine him as an Atlantean sage who carried the secrets of the lost island into Egypt, preserving them in temples and tablets so they would not vanish with the waves. Whether literal or symbolic, the idea of survivors reflects a deeper truth. Knowledge rarely disappears completely. Even when civilizations collapse, fragments endure in stories, in symbols, in practices passed quietly from one generation to the next. The myth of Atlantean survivors reassures us that wisdom is resilient, that even in catastrophe, humanity finds a way to carry forward its spark. Humorously, one might imagine Atlantean refugees arriving in foreign lands, trying to explain advanced geometry to farmers who just wanted to know when to plant their crops. Yet over time, those fragments of wisdom blended with local traditions, creating new cultures that still carry faint echoes of Atlantis. The survivors of Atlantis remind us that endings are also beginnings. A civilization may sink, but its memory sails on, carried by those who refuse to let knowledge drown. When Atlantis sank beneath the waves, legend says its treasures of wisdom did not vanish entirely. Knowledge, unlike stone or gold, has a way of surviving. It clings to memory, hides in symbols, and travels with those who carry it forward. The fall of the great island may have destroyed temples and towers, but the essence of its teachings endured. Stories tell of Atlantean survivors who safeguarded fragments of their civilization's secrets. They carried with them ideas of astronomy, geometry, medicine, and the mysterious sciences of sound and vibration. These were not ordinary skills, but glimpses of a worldview where the cosmos was understood as a living system, and humanity as part of its rhythm. Such wisdom could not be buried by the sea. It was too deeply woven into the minds of those who escaped. In Egypt, echoes of this knowledge appeared in the alignment of pyramids with the stars, in the sacred geometry carved into temples, and in the myths of gods who brought order to chaos. In other lands, fragments surfaced in myths of floods, in rituals of balance, and in stories of divine teachers. The knowledge was scattered, but it was never erased. The idea that wisdom cannot be lost is comforting. Civilizations may rise and fall, but their insights ripple forward. Even when scrolls are burned or monuments crumble, whispers remain in oral traditions, in symbols carved into stone, in practices passed quietly through generations. Atlantis became the ultimate symbol of this resilience, a civilization gone, yet its spirit alive in the cultures that followed. Humorously, one might imagine Atlantean sages sighing as they watched their island sink, muttering, "Well, at least the geometry will survive." And indeed, it did. The knowledge that could not be lost became the seed for future civilizations, reminding us that wisdom is more enduring than empires. Thoth is one of the most enigmatic figures in ancient tradition, a being who seems to stand at the crossroads of myth, history, and mystery. In Egyptian lore, he was revered as the god of wisdom, writing, and balance, depicted with the head of an ibis, a bird that looks perpetually thoughtful. As though pondering the secrets of the cosmos, Thoth was said to be the divine scribe who recorded the judgments of the gods and maintained the harmony of the universe. But Thoth was more than a god of ink and parchment. He was believed to be the architect of language itself, the one who gave humanity the gift of hieroglyphs. To the Egyptians, writing was not simply communication. It was magic, a way of shaping reality through symbols. Thoth, as the inventor of this sacred art, became the bridge between human thought and divine order. His role was to measure, to balance, and to ensure that chaos never overwhelmed creation. Legends also describe Thoth as a teacher. He was said to have guided kings, priests, and seekers, offering them knowledge of astronomy, medicine, and the mysteries of the soul. Some traditions even suggest that Thoth was not entirely human, but a being of higher intelligence who walked among mortals to preserve wisdom from ages long forgotten. In this sense, he becomes more than a mythological figure. He becomes a guardian of knowledge itself. Humorously, one might imagine Thoth as the universe's most dedicated librarian, endlessly cataloging truths while shaking his ibis head at humanity's tendency to forget them. Yet his presence in Egyptian culture was no joke. He was central to their understanding of order, truth, and the eternal balance between life and death. To ask who was Thoth is to open a door into the heart of ancient wisdom. He was scribe, teacher, god, and perhaps something more, a reminder that knowledge is sacred, and those who guard it shape the destiny of civilizations. Thoth was not remembered simply as a god of writing and balance. He was revered as the embodiment of divine intelligence itself. In Egyptian tradition, he was the mind of the cosmos, the one who measured the heavens, recorded the laws of creation, and ensured that order triumphed over chaos. His wisdom was not ordinary knowledge, but something deeper, a kind of intelligence that seemed to flow from beyond the human realm. Legends describe Thoth as the keeper of universal truths. He was said to know the movements of the stars, the cycles of time, and the hidden forces that shaped reality. To the Egyptians, this made him more than a deity. He was the architect of harmony, the one who balanced the scales of life and death. His intelligence was portrayed as infinite, a light that illuminated the mysteries of existence. This divine intelligence was expressed through the gifts he gave humanity. Writing, mathematics, astronomy, and medicine were all attributed to Thoth. He was the one who taught humans how to measure the earth, chart the skies, and preserve memory through symbols. In this way, he became the bridge between mortal understanding and eternal truth. His role was not to dominate, but to guide, offering knowledge as a path toward balance. Some traditions even suggest that Thoth's intelligence was not of this world. He was imagined as a being who carried wisdom from Atlantis, preserving it in Egypt so it would not be lost. Whether myth or metaphor, the idea paints him as a guardian of knowledge that transcends time and place. Humorously, one might picture Thoth as the universe's most patient teacher, endlessly explaining cosmic equations while humanity struggles to remember basic arithmetic. Yet his presence in myth reminds us that intelligence is sacred, and that true wisdom is not about cleverness, but about harmony. Thoth's divine intelligence endures as a symbol of the mind, aligned with the cosmos, a reminder that knowledge, when guided by balance, becomes the highest form of power. Thoth's presence in ancient tradition is so unusual that many myths suggest he was not entirely human. In Egyptian lore, he was revered as a god, but some interpretations describe him as a being who came from beyond, a messenger of higher intelligence, who walked among mortals to preserve wisdom from ages long forgotten. His role as the scribe of the gods, the inventor of writing, and the keeper of cosmic balance seemed too vast for an ordinary man, leading to speculation that his origins were otherworldly. Legends tie Thoth to Atlantis, portraying him as one of its great sages who survived the island's destruction. In this telling, he carried Atlantean knowledge across the seas, planting it in Egypt so it would not be lost. His non-human qualities, immortality, divine intelligence, and mastery of cosmic laws, were seen as evidence that he was more than a mortal teacher. Some traditions even describe him as a being of light, a traveler between dimensions, who could move freely between the earthly and the divine. The emerald tablets, attributed to Thoth, reinforce this image. They speak of journeys beyond the stars, of wisdom that transcends human limits, and of secrets hidden until humanity is ready to receive them, whether literal or symbolic. These accounts paint Thoth as a guardian of knowledge whose origins lie outside the ordinary boundaries of human history. Humorously, one might imagine Thoth arriving in Egypt with a cosmic passport, explaining to bewildered priests that he came from out of town, very far out. Yet the myth carries a serious message. Wisdom often feels larger than life, as though it comes from beyond us. Thoth's non-human origins symbolize the idea that true knowledge is timeless, flowing from realms greater than our own. In the end, Thoth remains a mystery, part god, part sage, part cosmic traveler. His story reminds us that wisdom may not always be born on earth, but it can shape the destiny of those who receive it. The emerald tablets are not only mysterious artifacts, they are said to be the very vessel of Atlantean wisdom. According to legend, Thoth preserved the teachings of his lost homeland within these indestructible tablets, ensuring that the knowledge of Atlantis would survive even after the island itself was swallowed by the sea. In this way, the tablets became more than writings. They became the living memory of a vanished civilization. The wisdom contained within them is described as vast and profound. The tablets speak of the unity of all existence, the eternal cycles of birth and death, and the hidden energies that flow through the cosmos. They reveal insights into the nature of the soul, the importance of balance, and the path toward enlightenment. To those who study them, the tablets are not simply instructions, but revelations, guiding humanity toward a deeper understanding of its place in the universe. Atlantean wisdom, as preserved in the tablets, was said to blend science and spirituality seamlessly. Geometry was not just mathematics, but a sacred language. Sound and vibration were not merely phenomena, but tools for healing and transformation. The Atlanteans, through Thoth, offered a vision of knowledge where the material and the spiritual were inseparable, each reflecting the other in harmony. This wisdom influenced Egypt profoundly. The alignment of temples with the stars, the use of sacred symbols, and the emphasis on balance in life and death all echo the teachings said to be carried from Atlantis. The tablets became a hidden foundation, a silent teacher shaping the course of civilization. Though their existence remains unproven, the emerald tablets endure as a symbol of wisdom that transcends time. They remind us that knowledge, once awakened, cannot be destroyed. The Atlantean voice, carried through Thoth, continues to whisper through the ages, urging humanity to seek harmony, balance, and truth. The emerald tablets of Thoth are among the most mysterious artifacts in ancient lore. They are said to contain the distilled wisdom of Atlantis, preserved so that humanity would not lose the secrets of creation. Unlike ordinary writings, the tablets are described as indestructible, glowing with a green radiance, and inscribed with knowledge that transcends time itself. The tablets are often portrayed as guides to higher understanding. They speak of the unity of all things, the cycles of life and death, and the hidden forces that shape reality. They describe the journey of the soul, the importance of balance, and the path to enlightenment. To those who study them, the tablets are not simply words, but keys, unlocking deeper layers of existence. Tradition holds that Thoth carried the tablets from Atlantis to Egypt, concealing them in sacred temples until humanity was ready to comprehend their meaning. This makes them more than relics. They are bridges between worlds, connecting the lost wisdom of Atlantis with the living traditions of Egypt. The language of the tablets is symbolic, filled with references to light, vibration, and transformation. Scholars and mystics have debated their meaning for centuries. Some interpret them as literal instructions for spiritual ascension, while others see them as allegories for inner growth. Either way, they remain a source of fascination, inspiring seekers to look beyond the surface of reality. The emerald tablets endure as one of the most captivating mysteries of ancient tradition. Whether real or symbolic, they remind us that wisdom is often hidden in layers, waiting for those who seek with patience and humility. The legend of Atlantis does not end with its destruction. According to ancient traditions, fragments of its wisdom were carried across the seas by survivors, and Egypt became the most important destination for this journey of knowledge. It is here that Atlantean teachings were said to take root, shaping one of the greatest civilizations in history. Egyptian culture is filled with echoes of this transmission. The alignment of pyramids with the stars, the use of sacred geometry in temples, and the emphasis on balance between life and death all reflect ideas that resemble Atlantean lore. The survivors, guided by figures such as Thoth, are believed to have introduced advanced concepts of astronomy, mathematics, and spiritual philosophy. These teachings blended with local traditions, creating a unique synthesis that gave Egypt its enduring character. The journey of knowledge was not only physical but symbolic. Atlantis represented a golden age of wisdom, and Egypt became the vessel through which that wisdom continued. The Nile Valley, fertile and enduring, offered a stable home for ideas that might otherwise have been lost. In this way, Egypt became a living library, preserving fragments of Atlantean thought for future generations. This transmission of knowledge also highlights the resilience of wisdom. Civilizations may fall, but their insights can travel, carried by those who refuse to let them die. The story of Atlantis flowing into Egypt is a reminder that knowledge is not bound to one place. It moves, adapts, and finds new homes, ensuring that the spark of understanding continues to burn. Whether literal history or symbolic myth, the journey of Atlantean wisdom to Egypt remains one of the most compelling parts of the legend. It suggests that even in loss, humanity finds a way to preserve its greatest treasures, not in stone, but in the continuity of ideas. The birth of ancient Egyptian civilization is one of history's most remarkable transformations. Along the fertile banks of the Nile River, a culture emerged that would endure for thousands of years, shaping art, science, and spirituality in ways that still resonate today. The Nile was the lifeblood of Egypt, flooding predictably each year and leaving behind rich soil. This rhythm of nature provided stability, allowing communities to grow, thrive, and eventually unite into a powerful kingdom. Early Egyptians learned to harness the river's cycles, developing agriculture that sustained large populations. Villages expanded into towns, and towns into cities, each bound together by shared traditions and beliefs. Over time, these communities coalesced into two distinct regions, Upper and Lower Egypt. Their eventual unification, traditionally attributed to King Narmer around 3100 BCE, marked the true beginning of Egyptian civilization. With unity came strength, and Egypt entered its first great era. Religion played a central role in this birth. The Egyptians saw the world as a balance between order and chaos, embodied in the concept of mat. Gods and goddesses were woven into every aspect of life, guiding agriculture, justice, and the cycles of death and rebirth. Temples became centers of both worship and learning, places where priests preserved knowledge and ensured harmony between humanity and the divine. The rise of writing was another milestone. Hieroglyphs allowed Egyptians to record history, administer their kingdom, and preserve sacred texts. This innovation transformed memory into permanence, ensuring that their achievements would echo across millennia. The birth of Egypt was not sudden but gradual, shaped by the steady rhythm of the Nile and the resilience of its people. From simple farming communities grew a civilization of extraordinary depth, one that blended practicality with spirituality and survival with grandeur. In its earliest days, Egypt laid the foundation for a culture that would become one of humanity's greatest legacies. The legacy of Atlantis and Egypt is often described not only in monuments, but in the symbols and sciences that carried hidden meaning. These sacred symbols were more than decoration. They were languages of power, designed to preserve truths that words alone could not capture. Geometry, astronomy, and myth were woven together into forms that spoke to both the mind and the spirit. The Egyptians inherited and expanded this symbolic tradition. The Ankh, symbol of life, represented the eternal cycle of birth and death. The scarab, rolling its ball of earth, became a sign of transformation and rebirth. The Eye of Horus embodied protection and balance, its proportions reflecting mathematical precision. Each symbol was a fragment of forgotten science, encoding knowledge about the cosmos, the body, and the soul. Sacred geometry was central to this system. The pyramids, aligned with the stars, were not only tombs but cosmic diagrams. Their proportions reflected harmony between earth and sky, embodying principles of mathematics that still inspire awe today. Circles, triangles, and spirals were used to express truths about energy, growth, and eternity. To the ancients, these shapes were not abstract. They were living expressions of universal law. The forgotten sciences hidden in these symbols included astronomy, medicine, and acoustics. Temples were built to resonate with sound, amplifying chants and prayers. Alignments with solstices and equinoxes revealed a deep understanding of celestial cycles. Healing practices often combined herbs with vibration, suggesting a science of energy that modern medicine has only begun to rediscover. Over time, much of this knowledge faded, buried beneath centuries of conquest and change. Yet the symbols endured, carved into stone and painted on walls, waiting for future generations to interpret. They remind us that wisdom can survive even when its sciences are forgotten, encoded in forms that transcend language. Sacred symbols and forgotten science are the silent teachers of history. They whisper that knowledge is never truly lost, only hidden, waiting for those who learn to see. Throughout history, whispers have persisted of records left behind by ancient civilizations, archives of wisdom concealed in temples, caves, and monuments. These hidden records are said to preserve truths too powerful or too sacred to be entrusted to ordinary memory. In the legend of Atlantis, such records were believed to contain the knowledge of the lost world, safeguarded by survivors and passed into the hands of later cultures. Egypt is often imagined as the guardian of these secrets. Beneath the sands, in chambers, beneath the pyramids and temples, myths speak of libraries that hold Atlantean knowledge. The most famous of these is the so-called Hall of Records, a legendary archive said to lie beneath the Great Sphinx of Giza. According to tradition, it contains scrolls, tablets, and maps detailing the history of Atlantis, the origins of humanity, and the cosmic laws that govern existence. Whether real or symbolic, the idea of such a hall reflects humanity's longing for a hidden source of ultimate truth. Other cultures echo this theme. In Mesoamerican traditions, sacred codices were preserved in temples, recording astronomical cycles and divine teachings. In India, myths describe records stored in subtle realms, accessible only to sages. These stories suggest that ancient peoples believed wisdom was too precious to be lost, and so they concealed it in ways that would endure beyond the fall of empires. The notion of hidden records also carries a symbolic meaning. It reminds us that knowledge often lies beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. Just as archaeologists dig through layers of earth to reveal forgotten cities, seekers of wisdom must look beneath appearances to find deeper truths. Whether buried in stone chambers or encoded in myth, the hidden records of the ancients continue to inspire, and the right seekers to bring them back into the light. The legends of Atlantis and Egypt often speak of wisdom too powerful to be left in plain sight. The idea that knowledge was deliberately hidden or buried reflects both caution and reverence. Ancient traditions suggest that certain truths about the cosmos, the soul, and the forces of creation were considered dangerous if misused. To protect humanity from its own arrogance, this knowledge was concealed, waiting for a time when it could be approached with humility. The Atlanteans, according to myth, possessed sciences that blended energy, geometry, and spirit. When their civilization fell, survivors feared that these teachings could be corrupted if placed in the wrong hands. Thus, they buried the wisdom in symbols, temples, and secret texts. Egypt inherited this practice, embedding cosmic principles into architecture, rituals, and hieroglyphs. The Great Pyramid, aligned with the stars, was not only a tomb but a coded monument, preserving truths in stone rather than scrolls. Priests and sages became guardians of this hidden knowledge. Mystery schools were established to initiate only those deemed worthy, teaching fragments of the wisdom step by step. The secrecy was not meant to deny humanity, but to protect it, ensuring that power was balanced with responsibility. In this way, knowledge became sacred, shielded from misuse by layers of ritual and symbolism. The burial of wisdom also carried symbolic meaning. It reflected the belief that truth must be sought, not handed freely, just as seeds lie hidden in the earth before they bloom. Knowledge was buried so that seekers would cultivate patience, discipline, and reverence before uncovering it. Whether literal or metaphorical, the idea of buried knowledge reminds us that wisdom is not lost but safeguarded. It waits beneath the surface, in myths, in monuments, in symbols, ready to be revealed when humanity is prepared to honor it. The legends of Atlantis and Egypt often suggest that the hidden records, sacred symbols, and buried wisdom were not meant for everyone. Instead, they were reserved for seekers prepared to approach them with reverence, discipline, and humility. The question of who is meant to find this knowledge has echoed across centuries, shaping the traditions of mystery schools and esoteric teachings. In ancient Egypt, priests and initiates were carefully chosen to receive fragments of this wisdom. They underwent years of preparation, learning to master both practical skills and spiritual balance. Only those who demonstrated purity of intent and strength of character were entrusted with deeper truths. The guardians of knowledge believed that power without virtue would lead to corruption, and so they restricted access to ensure wisdom was not misused. The myths of Atlantis reinforce this idea. Survivors of the cataclysm were said to have hidden their knowledge deliberately, knowing that humanity was not yet ready to wield it responsibly. The records were buried in temples, encoded in symbols, and concealed in monuments so that only future generations, when humanity had matured, could uncover them. In this way, the knowledge was preserved, not for curiosity, but for destiny. The seekers meant to find it. They are individuals who pursue truth, not for domination, but for harmony, who see knowledge as a path to enlightenment rather than power. The legends imply that the wisdom will reveal itself only when humanity reaches a stage where it can honor its sacred nature. Thus, the hidden records are not lost. They are waiting. They are meant for those who approach with patience, humility, and a desire to serve rather than control. In this way, the guardians of the past ensured that the treasures of wisdom would remain protected until the right hands and the right hearts are ready to receive them. The story of Atlantis has always carried with it a sense of longing, a vision of a golden age that vanished beneath the sea. Yet many traditions insist that Atlantis was never truly lost. Its wisdom, its spirit, and its memory survived, carried forward by those who refused to let it fade. Egypt became the most visible heir to this legacy, but echoes of Atlantis can be found across cultures, hidden in symbols, myths, and monuments. Atlantis lives on in the sciences that blend with spirituality, in the geometry of temples, and in the alignment of sacred sites with the stars. It endures in the idea that knowledge is eternal, that even when civilizations fall, their truths are preserved in fragments, waiting to be rediscovered. The Atlantean dream of harmony between humanity and the cosmos did not vanish. It was woven into the fabric of later cultures, shaping their understanding of balance, order, and enlightenment. In this way, Atlantis became less a place and more a state of being. It is remembered not only in stone and story, but in the human desire to seek wisdom beyond the ordinary. Every generation that looks to the stars, that studies the mysteries of life and death, that searches for hidden truths, is continuing the Atlantean legacy. The myth reminds us that civilizations may rise and fall, but wisdom endures. Atlantis was never truly lost because it lives within us, in our curiosity, our pursuit of knowledge, and our longing for harmony. Its spirit whispers through time, urging humanity to remember that truth cannot be drowned, only hidden, waiting for those who seek it with patience and reverence. And so, as the story of Atlantis closes for now, let its memory rest gently in your thoughts. The wisdom of the ancients is never far away, always waiting to be found again. Sleep peacefully, for the journey continues in dreams. Good night.